Hello everybody, welcome to this new video. Today we are talking about frame rates. What exactly is a frame rate, why you should know about frame rates, and why it is very important that you know which frame rate you're using and when you should use them. But first you might be asking yourself, why exactly are we at my desk? Well, that is because I've got some studies to do because my finals are coming up and I'll soon be graduating from high school, Austrian high school. And yeah, I need to study some psychology today, and I thought maybe I could spice up my studying session by filming a video during studying. I don't know if it'll work, but anyway, as I said, we're talking about frame rates. So the first thing you need to know about frame rates is, what are frame rates actually? So basically the frame rate is just how many photos are in 1 second of your video. So let's say you're shooting with 25 frames per second, that means that in 1 second of your video there are 25 images which create that 1 second of video. So now you might be asking yourself, why exactly would you want to know what frame rate you're shooting in? Well, that is because it is very relevant when you want to shoot slow motion. Because when you want to shoot slow motion, you want to shoot in a higher frame rate, meaning for example 50 frames per second, so that then you can slow it down by half the speed, which then creates a 25 frames per second video. But you filmed in 50 frames per second, which is why you see what you filmed in 1 second, you see that in 2 seconds, meaning it's just half slow. The same is when you shoot in 120 frames per second or even higher. You can always go slower by slowing it down to 25 or 24, whatever your preferred frame rate is. So the next question you might be asking yourself now is, why don't you always shoot in 50 frames per second or whatever your highest frame rate is? Because then you can always slow it down when you want to, but if you don't want to, you can always leave it like that. While that is a possibility, you can do that. I personally am not very fond of that idea because 50 frames per second, 30 is already a little problematic for me because I just personally think it looks so unnatural. It just looks kind of strange if you have a video at 50 frames per second without slowing it down. It just doesn't look natural. I don't know if you know this from YouTube, but some of the YouTube videos just look strange to me because they are played in 60 frames per second, or exported in 60 frames per second. And this is the reason why in Hollywood, for example, every film is exported in 24 frames per second, because that is the frame rate which everybody agrees to be the most natural. Just that I don't have 24 frames per second with full HD on this camera. That's why I'm shooting in 25 frames per second. Very close though. And in America, I think many people also shoot with 30 frames per second, which is still okay, but 60 frames per second looks so unnatural in my opinion, which is basically the reason why I would be changing my frame rate from 25 frames per second for videos like these, but when I'm shooting B-roll I go back to 50 frames per second so that I can have some slow motion. So that's basically all the basic knowledge you need to know about frame rates, and I hope I could provide you some valuable information. That's pretty much it for this video. I know it was pretty short, but I've got studying to do, as I said, and that's what I'm going to be continuing with right now. So, see you next week. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and yeah, see you next week.